Now to the Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP and Solana price. Ladies and gentlemen, are we expecting an even bigger correction in the Bitcoin price towards $45,000 in the coming days? And will a market reversal happen after that? Or is this market reversal happening very soon? Let's start with the Bitcoin price, then we will discuss new positions and we will also discuss a few economic events that will soon affect the price. In the last videos, we discussed that we have a flag formation here, and as you can see, the Bitcoin price has broken through the support zone and is now heading downward. Now the question arises, will the Bitcoin price reach its first price targets of $60,000, or perhaps we will see an even larger correction toward $45,000 to $40,000? As you can see, those would be the next price targets. We will discuss that in detail in a moment. First, I want to show you how this flag formation works and which economic data will affect the price. So the latest events affecting the price are America and Iran. And we also have unemployment figures on Friday, June 5th. So for the Fed to be able to cut interest rates, unemployment actually has to rise. Plus, next week on Wednesday, we have the inflation figures from the United States. These are important events because the Fed looks at these events and the Fed will decide based on these events whether to cut or raise interest rates. Because if inflation keeps rising, it could happen that the Fed raises interest rates. That would be negative for the cryptocurrency market. Most likely, the Fed will cut interest rates at the end of the year. That is how the flag works in theory. The price drops, forms the flag, and then the price goes down again. This is also an example of the flag. The price goes down, forms the flag, and then another correction happens. And this is an example of the triangle formation. I will show you in a moment why the triangle formation is important, because it has something to do with $45,000 and $40,000. We need to briefly discuss the support zones. We have been discussing these with you for a very long time. Since January, I have shown you where the support zones are. They are located between 70,000 and 55, and between 55 and 45, there is no support zone. You can actually see that quite well here. This is now the current situation. The Bitcoin price had a support zone in the 70,000 to 55,000 range. And we had a support zone between 45 and 40,000. As you can see, the price targets point to 45. So in principle, they point exactly to the support zone. Furthermore, what is very important, if the Bitcoin price slips further, we have almost no support zone between 55 and 45,000. So should the Bitcoin price break through 55,000, it could happen that it lands very quickly in the $45,000 range. So right now the price is in the $67,000 range. I will explain what the blue lines mean in a moment, because they also play a role. So in principle, usually the price breaks out of such a formation to the downside, and I have told you that several times. There was an 80% probability that it would break out to the downside. Now the question arises, will we continue to correct now, or will a rise in the Bitcoin price happen? From a short-term perspective, a rise can definitely happen, because after such a correction, these rises occur, but then you have to follow these red lines later. That is an indicator. As you can see, this indicator will move to the price, and these red lines will become the resistance zone. This means that from these red lines, it is possible for the price to fall. So let's assume the price rises towards $73,000, then the red lines appear. Even from these red lines, a larger correction can still occur. We are now discussing the situation if the price were to rise from a short-term perspective, because normally you have to follow the price targets. The first price target would be in the 60,000 range, and the second price target would be here at 40,000. That would be the final price target from this yellow formation. The first price target was reached back then. Then the flag formed. You can also see blue lines here. The blue lines play an important role. These are downward trend lines. Perhaps you can see it here. That was the downward trend line. When the price broke through the line, the price then rose. What am I getting at? As soon as we break through this blue line, if there is a larger correction, then we can expect a new bull market. We had a blue line here. That was the trend movement. When the price broke through it, an ascent followed. After that, a correction naturally follows. That will be our main resistance zone, and that will be our secondary resistance zone. So if the price approaches this line in the future, there is a possibility that the price will slip back down from this blue line. So to summarize, we have no support here. We have the last support zone here. Here in this area, we have no support zones. And let's assume the price actually heads toward 40 to 45,000, then it will consolidate at some point. And as soon as it breaks through this line here, then we can expect a good bull market. With the Ethereum price, we basically have the same situation as I explained to you. Here we actually have this flag formation. The price broke out to the downside. The price targets were here and down there. I will show you that in more detail in a moment. Plus, you can see these blue lines here. These blue lines are now becoming the main resistance zone. This means the price could slip back down from these blue lines. Here we had a breakout from this flag. The Ethereum price is dependent on the Bitcoin price. This movement was very negative as we discussed in the last videos. Plus you can see these red lines here. These red lines become resistance zones if there should be a rise again from a short-term perspective. Plus we have the price targets from this flag here. The first price target would be 1,580 and the second price target would be $820 in case the Ethereum price then, better said the other way around, in case the Bitcoin price then sees a somewhat larger correction. I would recommend that you follow these green lines. It is possible that I will correct them next week or adjust them slightly because I am waiting for the Bitcoin price to reach 60,000 because this was the point when the Bitcoin price reached 60,000. Then I can adjust these lines for a bit more precisely, so quite accurately. But nonetheless, these are good benchmarks for you in case we should see a larger correction with the Bitcoin price. Let's assume the Bitcoin price heads towards $40,000, then the Ethereum price will roughly stop here. As I said, these blue lines will play a role in the future. Let's assume the Bitcoin price continues to go down. We see a larger correction. The Ethereum price will also correct. After that, we will also see sideways movement. Sideways movements are also seen here, so it will not immediately lead to a rise. As I said, these blue lines will still play a role in the future. So as soon as the Ethereum price breaks through these blue lines, the probability is high that we will see a new bull market. So this is our main downward trend movement right now. The XRP price has also dropped. I have to say there is also some good news. Not all altcoins dropped as sharply as the Bitcoin price when it broke through 72,000. But nonetheless, we have this triangle formation here. You can also identify a flag formation here. The price targets here would be 82 cents, then we have 55 cents. That means if the Bitcoin price continues to slide now, there is a good chance that the XRP price will then continue to follow the Bitcoin price downward. Let's assume the Bitcoin price reaches 60,000, then the XRP price will likely land in the 96-cent range. So you can also use these green lines as a guide. This means if the Bitcoin price heads toward 45,000, then the XRP price will stay here. If the Bitcoin price heads toward 55,000, then the XRP price will stay at 80 cents. So here you can also see those would be the price targets from this triangle formation here at the front and down here. The blue line also plays a strong role because that is our main downward trend movement. That is a resistance zone. From this blue line, there is again a probability that the price will go down. So we will see that in the future. This blue line is the main trend movement. You can also see it quite well here. The price went down from this blue line, and when it broke through the blue line, an ascent followed. We need a breakthrough of this blue line for the future. But the XRP price is very dependent on the Bitcoin price. So first, the Bitcoin price has to start rising. With the Solana price, we also have a flag formation here. You could also call it a triangle formation. The price targets were here, $49, and then roughly in the $25 range. The Solana price is heavily dependent on the Bitcoin price. You can see that here as well. When the Bitcoin price was at $82,000, the price went down. The Bitcoin price went down, then the Solana price followed. Now we have seen a small correction. Now the question arises, where will the Solana price stop if we see a larger correction with the Bitcoin price? I would also recommend that you pay attention to these green lines. I will probably adjust these green lines slightly as soon as the Bitcoin price hits 60,000. If it hits that, because then I can calculate the Solana price a bit more accurately. So let's assume the price, the Bitcoin price heads towards $45,000, then the Solana price will stop here. If the Bitcoin price heads towards 55,000, then the Solana price will stop roughly here. But as I said, I will adjust these lines slightly, but we will discuss that in the following videos. It now depends heavily on how the Bitcoin price will develop, because we now have these blue lines. These blue lines are becoming resistance zones. These are major downward trend movements, and they will roughly show us in the future when the bull market begins, but we will discuss that in more detail. As I said, be careful in the coming days. So the Bitcoin price has broken out of this flag. That is a negative sign. The probability that it will return to the flag is there, but it is minimal. I thank you, wish you a pleasant evening, and see you then.